Hey everyone, welcome back to the Kicks and Picks podcast. We finally have the full crew assembled. Nick back from his various excursions around the country. He says for work. Scotty believes for other reasons. Scotty's back as well. He was back with me last week, and I've been here every week. So we are
Whoa,
here.
shade early,
Hey,
Coach
early.
consistency.
have
Whoo.
to throw the shade when you are on a roll, and I've gone 3-0 the past 2 weeks. I will happily share that information. We had a big week last week. I believe we were 7-2-1 on the weekend. Scotty, do you have how many units we were up last weekend with that 7-2-1?
We can grab it real quick. It's up
Yeah,
here.
hold on,
Let's
hold
see.
on.
Yeah,
Looks
so
like
while
we were
Scotty looks that up, our
up
over
5.7 units.
5.7 units, big week. Overall season record 41, 37, and 2, up 6.29 units. And our pod lock 6-2, up 3.14 units. So big couple rebound weeks for us. We are back in the green. No more red after a couple rough weeks. Of course, with our luck, it turns to the international break. So we'll have to try to stay hot through that long period away from club football. But we still have plenty of club football to talk about because we are going to revisit the futures in Serie A and the Premier League. We're about a quarter of the way through each of those seasons, 8 matches played out of 38, so just under a quarter way through the season. First, guys, how you doing tonight? And then we'll jump into the Premier League.
Yeah, you mentioned it, dude. The best way to stop momentum is for FIFA to screw us with this ridiculous schedule, but
Happened last time too.
sure did.
Works for me. Couldn't have
Oh,
asked for a better break in momentum if you have to ask me personally.
it's all good. It's a team effort. You guys know we've been doing this long enough where squad picks, the cold capper up, just the way it works, right? It's coach has been absolutely on fire, so we'd love to see that. Scotty and I have been trading okay weeks with bad weeks, it seems like, but I think we're all feeling pretty good. We're starting to get a sense of who these teams really are. Um, I think that's more true in the Premier League than it is in Serie A. We've talked about it now for 2 years, so you can't predict the team from week to week, but it's not going to stop us from trying. So we'll do our best, and I think we're going to have a fun one today.
Yeah, so if we jump into the Premier League, let's just look quickly at the table just to get the lay of the land. Surprisingly, Spurs, top of the table, 20 points, even with Arsenal also on 20 points. Identical goal differential to Spurs is technically top because they have more goals scored. City 2 points behind in third on 18, Liverpool on 17, and then it's Aston Villa in fifth on 16. A good start to the season for them. Brighton also on 16. I'll go down a couple more spots. West Ham on 14 and Newcastle on 13. Those are the teams kind of in the mix for Europe at the moment. A little more, surprising in some ways. United and Chelsea, right mid-table, 12 and 11 points respectively. What stands out to you there? We'll get into the relegation battle after, but just in terms of high-performing teams or teams expected to perform well, what do you notice there?
Yeah, Scotty, let me jump in first here. I would say that United and Chelsea are surprising to maybe the fan bases of United and Chelsea. I don't think they're all that surprising to the hosts or listeners of this podcast. I think we definitely said at the beginning of the year that, those teams should be better or should be equal to what they were last year, I guess, in United's case. But you have to see it to believe it. You have to see it to bet on it, for it to be worthy of your money. And that is super true with those two teams. Chelsea is still a disaster. United, 4 wins, 4 losses. It's kind of the same United that we've been used to over the past 2 years. I don't really see too much difference. But the most devastating thing that I'm seeing on this table is we're through 8 games. Manchester City has 2 losses. I don't know how long it took them to get 2 losses last year. I mean, I'm sure we could look that up if we tried, but let's guess that it was around Christmas time that they got their second loss. Just educated guess. 2 losses already for City. They're only 2 points back from the league leaders. That has to be absolutely devastating if you're Arsenal, if you're Tottenham, if you're Liverpool. Just kind of my hot take
Yeah,
in the league.
maybe. I don't think it is because the reason why City's losing are valid reasons. It's their midfield is completely like changed, like it's in it for a worse way, right? Like, Gundogan is now at Barcelona, and I think we're starting to realize he's probably like the unsung hero of the trio from last year. Kevin De Bruyne is hurt. He's not coming back until probably the holiday break. So it's not like, he's coming through the door after international break. His absence will continue to be felt. Rodri has missed the last 2 games because he's had a red card suspension. He's got one more coming after the international break. And I think, what Liverpool showed last season is like midfield is obviously a very, very important, part of the team to have, strong players in. Even if you have a really strong attack and a really strong defense, like it doesn't matter if they're not linked. And that's what the midfield really does. So I've been saying it on the pod with Coach, the last few times, like this is the most vulnerable City has been in a few years. And I certainly think that, if there was a time for another team to come in and get a Premier League title during this era of Pep dominance at City, this is certainly a season where it's viable. Who those leading candidates are, maybe we can kind of segue to that. Obviously City, the league favorites at -135, I think is where you'd find them in the books. But, just behind them, Liverpool's at +500, Arsenal's at +400. Tottenham, your league leaders currently, are +1100. So, and then I'll throw in Newcastle at +4000, since that was kind of a dark horse pick of many. They're working their way back up, but I do think City are vulnerable. I think if you're going to try to take a future on the Premier League, like this is the year to do it, because City's still going to have a lot of the money going their way, which is going to drive down, their price, but drive everybody else's up. But I don't necessarily think this is the year that they'll win it. It's really hard to three-peat. So I think this is, good news for Arsenal, good news for Liverpool. I don't know if I buy Tottenham as a title contender yet, but maybe good news for Spurs and Newcastle fans as well.
And from a betting standpoint, I agree with you 100%. I think now is the time to take a shot on the field, right? Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, if you're so inclined. I mean, incredible numbers that we didn't see 8 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. So I am absolutely 100% aligned with you when it comes to betting. But I just think, like I said, they got to feel pretty decent about themselves only being 2 points back. I was thinking more from a City perspective.
Yeah, but they also started out, winners of 6 straight. So it's kind of a tale of two different parts of the season. Obviously the win last weekend, the loss last weekend versus Arsenal, I think that's probably more concerning. They lost to Wolves. Those kind of games happen. It's not ideal, but kind of showing that these top 4 rivals are able to pick points off you now. That's going to be the real challenge for City fans.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think so, right? When you talk about last season, how did they lock up that title? It was beating Arsenal twice in the second half of the season, because the first one was postponed for FA Cup or something. And when that happens and you take 6 points off your direct rival for the title, there it is, done and dusted pretty much, because Arsenal was great other than the run-ins with City for the most part. The number that jumps out at me is, and I don't know if they can hang around, I'd love to get your guys' opinion, Spurs at +1200 is a lot of value on a team playing really well. I mean, I was the first one to say without Harry Kane, I didn't think they even had a shot at top 4, maybe not even top 6. And here they are, first through 8 matches. Obviously, it's only just about a quarter of the way through the season, a lot of matches to play. But the fact that they've done this well so quickly under the new manager without their talisman, I think says a lot about the way the team's been constructed and the way they're playing very well so far.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, they're the surprise of the season so far. I'll absolutely buy that. I'll agree with that. I think it's an attractive betting number, but I think, to Scotty's point, it might be a little bit of fool's gold. 8 games, the best start they could possibly hope for. Are they going to keep it up? I don't know, but are they maybe that team that kind of goes under the radar because everybody else is kind of has the weight of expectations on them, starts beating up on each other, has those European commitments week in and week out, and they don't? Are they the Juve of the Premier League this year?
Took the words out of my mouth.
Maybe. I'd like to get. I don't think the number's going to dramatically drop over the next 5 or 6 games. I'd like to see another month's worth of games from Tottenham before I really make my opinion strong.
Yeah, I'm fully out on Tottenham as a title contender here for a number of reasons. The first is, I think you can look at what Arsenal did last season. I think Arsenal last season is a much better team than the Spurs team of this season. but they ran out of gas at the end of the season, right? Like it's really hard to maintain this level of quality all season long, especially when you have City and it seems like Liverpool are going to be back up this year, and maybe even Arsenal if they can kind of work through some of the kinks that they have right now. To try to sustain that high level of play for 38 matches when you really haven't had any sort of history of doing it within the squad itself or experience, I'll say they don't have that experience, right? And a lot of these key players that are playing a lot of minutes for them, Destiny Udogie is 20, Pape Mate Sarr is 21, Mickey Van de Ven in the center half is 22. It's a lot of young guys. Pedro Porro is a little bit older, 24, but that's those type of players are the ones where when shit hits the fan, like you're gonna need someone to kind of pull the squad together. Postecoglou is still pretty new to the league. I mean, I don't doubt him as a manager, but I don't necessarily think he's quite has the ability right now to keep a young squad together long enough throughout the season to sustain this title charge. So I think it's questionable. The other reason why I don't really think that they're going to sustain it is we all kind of identified their midfield as being the weak link for their team this season. And their midfield has been playing, I think, well above, their punching weight. They've gotten a lot out of Basuma so far this season, but if Basuma gets hurt or misses some, extended time, I think he's actually going to be going to AFCON, right? Because he's I forget which country he plays for, but I think he'll be gone at AFCON. So he's going to miss a number of games. He plays for Mali. So he's going to miss a number of games in January, which is going to hurt because now you're going to be asking, 21-year-old Sarr, you're going to be asking Højbjerg to step in. Like the quality drops off. So I think it's a matter of when, not if, Tottenham starts to falter. I still think they'll finish, in the Champions League spots. Especially, I think England has a pretty good shot at getting 5 this season with the new rules. So I think that's the good news. Like that's probably their goal coming into the season, to secure a Champions League spot, and I think they're certainly well on their way there. But as far as sustaining a title charge, I don't see it. I think they're probably out of the picture by end of January.
Plus 110 right now to finish top 4, by the way.
Yeah. I think the advantage they have, I think, like you mentioned, is no Europe, Nick. And I think that's why top 4 is well within play. And I think many Spurs fans would be over the moon with finishing top 4 after the way the offseason went, after the way last season went. I agree with you. I think you have to wait another 5-6 matches before you fully commit on Spurs to really make a run at the title. If they keep playing well, though, and they look like a team that could maybe challenge, and you think City's going to win the league, they have the betting odds on DraftKings without Man City as the winner. You take Man City out of the equation, who's the next best team? Spurs is still plus 550 in that one. So there's some value there if you think they could even finish second and challenge throughout the season. Arsenal plus 120, Liverpool plus 200. That's assuming City wins. That's that little prop they have there. We toyed around without who was it? Without City
and Liverpool
last year. We toyed around with Newcastle and just missed out because Arsenal performed better than we expected. But some things to keep an eye on.
I think the hot take I'll make, the next hot take I'll make, I think the current top 4 are the top 4 at the end of the year. Not necessarily in this order, but I think these current 4 teams are the best teams right now. You think Villa or Brighton get in there?
I think Newcastle get in there. Yeah. I think
Newcastle haven't looked good.
They've also had the hardest schedule by far. And they have looked pretty good since they've gotten out of that schedule. They've actually looked pretty good.
So they beat the easier teams?
They're beating the easier teams. They beat PSG, right?
Yeah, not an accomplishment. Not an accomplishment if you listen to this podcast.
Yeah, but I mean, they certainly struggled early on against the Cities and the Liverpools. Like again, Liverpool's nicked a win off of them again this season. Wasn't exactly a trouncing by any means. And yeah, I think they'll find their groove and they'll certainly get on with it. Let's do this. I'll give you my top 5. I think the title comes down to City and Liverpool. I think it'll be between those two at the end. I think Arsenal will be a firm third, but I think they start to, especially if Saka misses some time with injury, and Saliba, who supposedly played through an injury against City, if those two guys miss some time, I think they're going to struggle to keep up with Liverpool and City. I think Newcastle sneak out fourth, and I think Tottenham finish fifth, but that should still be enough for a Champions League spot.
I mean, hey, listen, we love Newcastle, team of the podcast. I'm not actively rooting against them. I just think they've been inconsistent. They're definitely scoring a lot of goals. Could their defense be better? I think so. Let's see. Same thing, right? Where I'm trying to make a hot take 8 games into the season. Give me another 5. If they win 4 out of the next 5, I'll buy them over Tottenham because they did it last year. They're proven. It's a core group that's improved over the past 2 years. If they win 2 out of the next 5, I'm gonna be as lukewarm as I currently am.
All right.
Let's see who Newcastle has for their next 5. They got Crystal Palace, they got Wolverhampton, Arsenal, Bournemouth, and Chelsea. So
all right, I could see
4 out of 5.
Of
certainly well within
the realm. Yeah.
If they pick up 10 points out of those 5 games, I think that's solid. I will buy Newcastle if they pick up 10 points in the next 5.
It's also Arsenal. They get Arsenal at home too. So
there you go.
That November 4th. Let's pencil that in. That's going to be a big match that we feature on the podcast.
All right, I like it.
All right. If we go to the other end of the table, if we look at the relegation battle right now, last place Sheffield United just 1 point, Bournemouth 3 points, Burnley and Luton Town 4 points, Everton 7, Brentford 7, Wolves 8. If we make our way up a little bit on the table, so if we look at the odds for relegation at this point, to be relegated, Sheffield United minus 650, Luton Town minus 500. The books are all but relegating them at this point. Yep. Bournemouth plus 160, Burnley plus 175, Everton plus 300, and Wolves plus 450.
Okay.
Any chance that you see Sheffield or Luton Town surviving? Because to survive would be plus 225 on Luton, plus 350 for Sheffield.
No, Sheffield, absolutely not. I'm sorry, Scotty. You'll go a little more in depth than I will, so let me just get it out. I think Sheffield is worse than I thought they'd be because I thought Luton Town would be the worst team, and somehow they have a win out of their first 8 games. So kudos to them. Sheffield, no wins. Bournemouth, no wins. I don't know. Sheffield has a negative 16 goal differential, so they're giving up 2 more goals a game than they are scoring thus far. Yeah. You got to feel really happy if you're an Everton fan at this point in time. It's not to say that they're safe, but 7 points feel like a 6-point gap feels almost insurmountable with that last place team. So good on them. No, Coach, to answer your question, I think it's those 2 teams, and I would probably take a shot with Bournemouth. I think at the better odds to get relegated if I was picking a 3rd team.
Yeah, I think the good news for Everton right now is that the newly promoted clubs have not looked like they're Premier League ready yet.
Yeah.
Sheffield and Luton, Luton have actually beat Everton. That's their 1 win. So go figure. But they promptly followed that up with back-to-back losses to Tottenham and to Burnley, which actually really stings because that's the one of their fellow promoted clubs as well. So that one's tough. I think the real question comes down to, can one of these newly promoted clubs stay up? I think if there is one right now that has the best chance, it's probably Burnley. I think we all had a lot higher expectations for Burnley coming into the season, and we've kind of had to readjust them. Whereas Luton Town has beat Everton 2-1 to get their 1 win. Burnley has beaten Luton Town 2-1 to get their 1 win. So you can't really make too much out of that. But I think, it would be a great story if Luton Town stay up. I think that'd be great. It seems more likely that it's going to probably be Luton and Sheffield for sure going down, and then can Burnley pip Bournemouth to escape? And the way that Bournemouth has been playing, I don't know. I obviously had them against Everton this weekend, and they got absolutely smacked by Everton.
Disaster.
Destroyed.
Yeah.
And then
Still
they got
winless.
destroyed by Arsenal the week before that too. So it's not only that they aren't really getting points, it's that they're not even being competitive in the process.
Also have the lowest scoring attack in the league, which is 5 goals scored, less than Sheffield and Lyon. Both have scored 6. No wins. All 3 points are from draws, so certainly something to keep an eye on. One of the worst defenses, so they're where they are for a reason. I don't think there's enough value on either team to put a future on plus 150 or plus 175. It's not worth tying up money on. But I think it comes down to one of those two as the third team. Luton Town right now not technically in the relegation zone, but I think they fall back into it.
Definitely. I think Wolves is maybe the best 2-win team I've ever seen. I think Wolves, like, they feel like they should be higher. I feel like they've played better games than some of the results that they've gotten so far, and they've gotten good results. But I think they passed the eye test, I think, more than the teams around them. And I know we didn't go this high up the table, but like Fulham and Nottingham Forest to me are two kind of disappointments after the good years they've had last year.
Yeah, you have to remember Mitrovic left, right? He was a big part of their success. You look at Brentford, they're also in 15th, kind of like in the relegation conversation, even though they probably don't fall that deep into it.
Yeah.
No, Ivan Toney's been killing them, right? They've 1 win, 4 draws in 8. So you got to, one player sometimes makes a big difference on those kind of clubs, especially the goal scorer. Speaking of goal scorers, let's look at the futures before we wrap up the Premier League with goal scoring. Right now, Erling Haaland leads the league with 8 goals scored. Alexander Isak and Son from Spurs, both with 6. And then you have a couple players with 5, Salah, Bowen, and Huang from Wolves. So thinking about that, these are the futures on the top goal scorer, win the Golden Boot, the Premier League. Haaland is still a big favorite at minus 450. Heung-min Son plus 1,200. Salah plus 1,200. Ollie Watkins plus 2,000. And Isak plus 2,500, rounding out the top 5. Big numbers on some of those other guys. Can any of them nip Haaland for the Golden Boot and really win you a nice future?
So this is, we talk kind of about this, right? Of course, it doesn't make sense to take a minus 450 favorite. But it's one of those bets where anything could happen, right? Could he get hurt? Not wishing for him to get hurt. Could he get hurt? He's looked a little stale the last 2 or 3 games. Does Alvarez start picking up the slack? Things that could be factors. The one guy that's really surprising me on this list is Salah, just because his goal scoring hasn't stopped. I figured he was going to turn a little bit more of a provider, considering the depth that Liverpool have up front, and he has done that. I feel like he has an assist in every match as well, but he's also scoring in every match. So kudos to him. He looks great. The only reason I would not say to take him is the biggest reason we talk about all the time. It's AFCON. I think that's going to be a huge drain on him. Obviously, we'll miss time. I wouldn't mind somebody taking a shot with Ollie Watkins or Alexander Isak. I don't think they're likely to win, but good numbers as you'll find on guys that are off to a really good start.
Yeah, and I think not the good news. I mean, if you want to bet against Haaland, the optimistic outlook here is he has 2 goals in his last 4 Premier League appearances,
and we're
showing
saying
that
that's
without
bad, right?
Yeah,
like, isn't that
I mean it is. I mean he's
you...
slowed down, right? Like it's certainly not the format we're used to where he has 2 hat tricks in his last 4 Premier League games, right? Yeah, I agree with you on Salah. I don't know that he's necessarily the play here, especially with AFCON. He really has tried to shift more into distributor role, but in the past few games, he's had to kind of take on the goal scoring load as a lot of the Liverpool players keep picking up red cards at inopportune times. I think the players that maybe make the most sense for me, I love Isak on this one. He's clearly won the starting position for Newcastle over Callum Wilson. I've been high on him since he's come over to Newcastle. I think he's kind of having, I don't want to call it like a breakout season, but he's certainly kind of showing why Newcastle spent the money that they did on him. So him at plus 2,500, being just 2 behind Haaland right now, knowing that KDB is still far off in the distance, which is really when I think Haaland's goal scoring will pick up once he comes back. I don't love Son just because he's 31 years old and he's trying to carry the load for Spurs now. Something's going to have to break there. The other one that I like, a little bit of homerism here, is Darwin Nunez. For the same reason we don't like Salah, I kind of like Nunez. Salah's going to step out for a month. Who's going to fill that void? The one drawback on Nunez right now has been that he's been kind of splitting the starts with Gakpo. I'm hoping as a Liverpool fan that following this break, assuming he's healthy, well, Gakpo's a little bit hurt right now, but assuming Nunez is healthy, he's going to kind of own that starting 9 position moving forward. And with this Liverpool team right now, they're very strong in attack. They're scoring goals even when they're down to 9 men. I think he has every possibility of kind of putting together a run here where he might put up 25 plus goals this season. And obviously the number you're going to need to outscore Haaland is probably somewhere in the 30s. So Looking at this list, who are the guys that can get at least 25? To me, it's Nunez and Isak, and that's about it.
Yeah, I definitely think Isak could be worth a shot. He's only 2 behind. He's Newcastle's, out and out striker, and like you said, Son, yeah, he's not an out and out striker. The age could catch up with him. It's still Haaland's to lose, but
Yep.
like you said, if there's ever a time to take a shot, it seems like with KDB out, not supplying the balls into to him till close to Christmas, like Scott said, could pull down that number a bit. We'll see. It's one of those ones where you could put a little bit on it, and it could reward you in a big way if there is someone that you do like.
One quick thing, Coach, I want to do a spot check on because we did put some props out there, player props. I know Scotty put a few out in writing. I put a few out on. I was actually on with Andrew plus Money Pod. So Saka over 11.5 goals. How are we feeling about that bet right now?
Well, it depends on his injury. I know he's injured right now. Kind of unclear what the scope of that injury is, but certainly been playing well. I think, let's see, where was he on that list? He has like 4 or 5 so far this season.
Yep.
So certainly like halfway there with basically 20 some odd matches left to go, 28 matches left to go. Did I do that math right? Yeah, I think feeling pretty good about it.
We're feeling good. Saka over 11.5 goals.
Just did Saka.
Did I say Saka? I'm sorry, I meant Wilson.
Yeah.
I'm looking at both of them right at one after the other.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Wilson.
I'm so sorry.
Feel great about. Yeah, I mean, Isak has kind of taken over the starting position, but even in his sub appearances, Wilson's already netted 5 times this season. So halfway there, also halfway there with 30 games, 38 matches. Yeah, 30 games to go. So as long as he can stay healthy, I think that one's pretty easy as well.
Okay, and then one that I took, we didn't put in writing, but Andrew at the Plus Money Pod actually gave it out. I screamed support for it immediately, and I think we all kind of hopped on board. Luis Diaz over 7.5 goals.
Yes, he should.
He's already gotten 2 taken away from him by VAR.
Yes,
so
that's the problem.
Let's keep that in mind.
He started out the season as Liverpool's best player. Now it's kind of probably gone over to Szoboszlai, but he should. The thing that makes me nervous is he's been benefiting from Salah's assists more than pretty much anybody. Yep. So when Salah goes to AFCON, and if he comes back and is tired, the second half of the season could be hard for Diaz.
Okay.
But if he can pick up another 2 goals before Christmas break, I would say you're looking pretty good.
All right.
So let's swing it over to Italy now. Serie A table right now. Milan first on 21 points. Inter second on 19. Juve and Fiorentina 17. Napoli 14. Atalanta 13 and 6th. We have to go all the way down to 10th for my Roma on 11 points, and all the way down to 13th for Nick's Lazio on 10 points. Those are the big, I guess, 8 you could call them at this point, because Atalanta's joined the Seven Sisters in recent seasons. So with that in mind, Serie A winner right now to win the league outright: Inter Milan plus 130, AC Milan plus 225, Juve plus 450, Napoli plus 700. Everyone else is in the more than 2,800, where Atalanta sits 5th. So, Nick, I'll go to you. You're a Serie A guy. What do you see the league right now? Do you see, first of all, anyone besides the 2 Milan clubs with a shot at winning the league? And has anything stood out to you in the way the table's broken down so far?
No, nothing has, quite honestly. I think if you listen to us, any of our preview stuff, any of the first 7 weeks of the year, these 2 teams are the best 2 teams right now. They're head and shoulders above the rest of the league. That's evident in the standings. That's evident in game in and game out. So not surprising. Juve, I think we all said, similar to Tottenham, right? They only have 1 game a week. They're going to be potentially the most motivated team of any team, right? They had legal issues. They have player issues. They're fan issues all around. So
gambling issues.
Gambling issues. We have those too. So knew they'd kind of be in the mix. So top 3 to me, and Napoli's right there, right? Napoli's had a very, very poor start, only 4 wins in 8 games as a title defender, but they're still 1 win off of top 4. So none of that to me is surprising. I think Roma and Lazio, you and I probably realistically said they're fighting for 5th place. Well, that's true today, right? The best they could possibly hope to do is top 6, top 5, top 6. I think that's the other teams.
I think top 4 still in play because
I don't
nobody
know.
outside of those top 3 has really shown me that they are that consistent yet.
Maybe for you. I don't think it is for Lazio. I'm being selfish, I guess, in my analysis, but no, I think we feel pretty good. We gave out, or my preseason pick was Milan to win the league. That was actually a plus 550. It was all the way down to plus 400 right at the first game of the year. So seeing them undefeated through 8 games certainly feels good. I think that, their new attacking players have gelled as good as anybody could have possibly hoped for. I think if Giroud can turn back the clock one more time and have one decent stretch this season, they have the potential to put some distance between them and everybody else. Inter, great squad, but they also have Champions League aspirations. Whether that's realistic anymore or not, that's another debate. But I think Inter believes they could win 3 titles this year. So how much heart are they going to have in the league? What's most important to them? That to me could be the difference.
Correction,
I think
Milan do have a loss this year, Nick. They
do.
lost to Inter.
To Inter, they got
Sorry.
pounded.
Sorry.
It's a very
one.
important loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think Inter's still the best team on paper. I think, like you said, depends on how far these teams go in Europe. I think that'll affect them a lot. Milan's been a little disappointing with their 2 draws, which puts we picked them as a group winner future because the odds are so nice on them, and they've kind of disappointed because they haven't scored goals. It's been 2-0-0s. But I think that will start to clear itself up as we move deeper into Champions League. Juve, I think, like you said, is motivated. Are they as good as these clubs? Not from what I've seen so far, but they don't have that European commitment where if these 2 teams do make, say, the quarterfinals of Champions League and make runs in Coppa Italia, can Juve capitalize on that? Possibly. But at the moment, I wouldn't bet on it. I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, if we move to top 4, pretty much right now, the books have their top 4 almost locked in. It's Inter minus 1,100, AC Milan minus 700, Juve minus 350, Napoli minus 225, and then some of the other clubs with a chance. Atalanta plus 200, Fiorentina plus 275, Roma plus 400, Lazio plus 500. I don't buy that Napoli's locked into top 4 so firmly right now. I think a lot depends on their manager situation. I know the rumors are swirling that Antonio Conte could be intrigued by the job, and if he's willing to accept that, Rudy Garcia will be showing the door during his international break. How much do you think Conte changes what Napoli can do this year?
I don't think Scott or I are nearly as high on him as you are, or ever have been. I think, in my mind, listen, he did great with a stacked Juve side. He overachieved with Italy. Outside of that, he hasn't done much. I think he's underachieved probably every other position. I don't know how much he wants this Napoli side. They're a little bit weaker than they were last year. They're a little bit more figured out than they were last year. We have Osimhen, who will be taking a month off. I hate to keep knocking on the AFCON door, but when literally the best striker in the league is going to miss a month of games, that's a big issue. Kvara, he's looked okay, but his numbers are nowhere near where they were last year at this point in the season. So I don't really see the upside. They're not going to splash a ton of money.
The squad's not built for him. I think
Right.
that's the issue. He plays a very specific system with the back 3, and I don't think they're built for that.
Definitely not. You trust in Juan Jesus in your back line, right? Something goes wrong, he's the next guy that has to step up. So I don't know.
Pocketed Leo
I
Messi
just
in the
don't see-
Champions League, remember?
Okay. Sure. So yeah, I don't see why he goes there. I think he only goes to a team that can spend money and deliver exactly the players that he wants, so that he could then complain about it 2 years later and leave.
And Napoli doesn't really spend, right? Even Osimhen, they had to.
Yeah.
That's even under scrutiny that maybe those player valuations were a little inflated on some of the youth team players that were sent to Lille in that deal. I don't see De Laurentiis spending for what he's going to want. Maybe he can convince him this season, this is the squad, next year we'll spend for you, but how much can they spend? Especially if they don't finish top 4. That's the whole thing, I think. And we saw
they
Spurs,
got to make some sort of
right,
run in the
Scotty?
Champions League to get that money.
Yeah, if you're talking long term, when you said Conte for Napoli, I could see it maybe working out this season, but that's not a good match long term at all. like you kind of talked or mentioned Spurs there for a second, coach, and well, I think Napoli and Spurs are a little bit different in that regard. It could certainly, it still wouldn't be the right setup for what Conte usually succeeds with. So I could see this, if that goes down, being a big issue for Napoli.
Yeah, so looking at the race for the top four, if we don't buy Napoli with Garcia or possibly with Conte, do you think Atalanta at plus 200, Fiorentina 275, Roma 400, Lazio 500 is worth a crack?
Not really. There's nothing I like there. Nothing that I would advise betting.
Yeah, if you're trying to take those two, I think you missed the boat on them, because at the beginning of the season, I don't know if we have that, but I'm sure they were.
No, I can tell
valuable.
you that actually the numbers
at least
weren't good for
Fiorentina.
top four. Maybe for them, I could tell you. So top four, Roma was plus 125, Lazio was plus 150, Atalanta was plus 200, Fiorentina was plus 600. So that's the team that missed the boat.
Yeah,
but I don't think they keep it up. I think
they
have goal scoring issues, and if it like lately, if Nico Gonzalez isn't carrying the team on his back, they don't seem to find the net.
Yeah,
agreed there.
The only thing that would make sense, and I don't want to give coach any hope here, would be Roma, because they do seem to be playing really well now. And then Lukaku actually seems to be not terrible. So,
coach, if you take out the first three matches before Lukaku, I think you see a big difference in the way the squad's performing. But still a lot of ground to make up.
Do you want to remind the listeners who you picked to finish top four as your preview pick?
I had to be Inter, Juve.
Who was that fourth team?
Napoli and Roma.
No, I have it here in writing. Lazio plus 175.
Did I? No.
Oh,
damn,
sure
coach.
Did.
Wow.
Sure did.
Damn.
Wow.
Damn.
I must have been pulling the reverse jigs on Lazio, so that Roma finished fourth.
In fairness, I gave out Atalanta, and that's looking okay.
All right, so if we go to the flip side, the bottom half of the table, right now, relegation battle, Cagliari on 2 points, no win so far. Bottom of the table, Salernitana 3 points, no win so far. Empoli 4 points, Udinese 5 points, Verona 5, Verona 8, and Genoa 8. If we go from 15, up to 15th place. If we look at those to be relegated numbers, right now, Cagliari minus 200, Salernitana minus 120. Empoli minus 110, Verona plus 200, Frosinone plus 225, Udinese plus 250, and Genoa plus 500. Shout out to Lecce. They're plus 700 now. They've performed really well. They were one of the teams really a lot of people pegged for relegation, and Frosinone as well. They're on 12 points right now.
I have the numbers for you.
Yeah, them and Lecce both on 12, so kudos to those two squads.
So Frosinone was minus 250 to get relegated, the heavy favorite. Lecce,
I thought they would be the worst team in the league.
Lecce minus 125, and beating boys of the pod, Hellas Verona, even money, Genoa plus 135. So those were the four favorites to get relegated.
Do you have the Empoli number in front of you? Because I think we both pegged Empoli.
Plus 225.
Yeah, so that if it was taken before the season's looking pretty good now.
Yeah, and they didn't have a goal through the first 6 games. So, yeah. I mean, I think that stands, right? That they're the Sheffield United maybe of the Serie A right now.
So looking at those teams that are the 3 betting favorites to be relegated, Cagliari, Salernitana, and Empoli, do you think any of those 3 survive, or do you think they're in big danger right now?
No, I think we're looking at the 3 worst teams in the 3 worst spots. I mean, I think that has to be true at this point in time. Udinese, they only have 5 points. They're actually winless. So they're 0-5-3.
Yeah, a lot of draws there.
That's really not a surprise to any of us. I think eventually they'll figure it out. I don't want to say they're too big to go down, but like they've done this long enough. They'll fire the coach in 2 or 3 weeks, and they'll get that bounce. They'll start getting some goals. So, you got to feel pretty good if you're Genoa. You got to feel pretty good if you're Lecce. I think Hellas and Udinese are still candidates to maybe go down.
Yeah, I think Hellas or Udinese could get dragged into it. Genoa's performed too well, I think, against some good teams. They've beaten Roma and Lazio so far. Those kind of wins carry a lot of weight as the season goes on. And Lecce and Frosinone, the fact they're on 12 points already, it gives them a pretty decent cushion, I think.
I mean, it's already an 8-point cushion from 18th place. That's almost
Yeah.
insurmountable, like for these relegation teams.
All right, so let's take it over to the Golden Boot race in Italy. Right now, Lautaro Martinez is way in the lead with 10 goals. Osimhen 6 goals, Berardi 5, Nico Gonzalez of Fiorentina 5, and Romelu Lukaku 5. You know, Martinez was highlighted by that 4-goal performance he put on just a couple weeks ago off the bench. He is the betting favorite at plus 110, followed by Osimhen at plus 240, Lukaku at plus 1,000, Vlahovic plus 1,100, Berardi plus 1,100, Giroud sneaks in there at plus 1,600, Paulo Dybala and Ciro Immobile plus 2,500. And I'll give a couple more just because our American listeners, Pulisic plus 2,800 and Leao plus 2,800. So I guess I'll throw these guys in here too because we talked about them as dark horses preseason. Matteo Retegui plus 3,500, Gianluca Scamacca plus 5,000 still. So is it Lautaro's? Is there a chance somebody overtakes him? What do you see there?
Yeah, feeling good about these futures. Lautaro was the guy that I said should win this award. He's plus 200 before the season started, so these odds have moved in your favor if you took him early on. But now's a good chance if you did do that. If you want to take Osimhen and you think one of those two guys gets it done, good chance to make some money.
I wouldn't take
Hold on.
Osimhen because of AFCON though.
No, and that's the reason we said not to take him at the beginning of the year. I still don't think he'll win, but I think he's still the second most likely to get it done after the rest of those names. I mean, maybe you take a stab at Lukaku because he's been so hot, but the ones we highlighted, Lautaro, Berardi, Vlahovic has been hurt, so that's a little bit of a disappointment. I think those are the three guys you could realistically take a stab with, but Osimhen at plus 240. I mean, that's probably as good as you'll see it the rest of the year.
Yeah,
I think he's going on a tear before AFCON. I honestly do.
I think if you took Martinez and you're in good position to cash that and you wanted to take like a backup, a smaller bet with a higher number, I think Lukaku's the one just because he has literally scored almost every match so far. Not saying he's going to continue to do that, but he looks like Inter prime form Lukaku from a couple years ago that's just manhandling some of these smaller side defenses. I think Osimhen, when he goes away, that's going to take some wind out of his sails. Wouldn't be surprised if he does go on a tear before that, but it also depends what happens with Rudy Garcia because that relationship is really bad right now. It seems, pulling him in games where they need a goal, and you would have never seen Spalletti do that last season. You don't generally take off your star striker when you're down a goal or even in a draw situation where you're trying to get a winner. So interesting situation there in Napoli. I remember I said Scamacca was my dark horse. He's been non-existent. I know you talked about Retegui as being a dark horse. He's been all right, but he's not putting up the numbers you need, I think, to win the award.
No, I thought he'd have more goals just because I thought he'd be the guy, but Gudmundsson playing next to him has been equally good. I think Retegui's been awesome. If he was on a different team, he could make a bid for this, but it's out of the cards now. He needed to go on like a 5-goal in his first, 10-game binge, and that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Scotty, what do you think? Who are you taking a stab with here? Gun to your head.
I think the crazy thing, we're talking about Lautaro with 10 goals, having a 4-goal lead over Osimhen, who's going to be on at AFCON, but he's still plus money compared to Haaland at minus 450 with just a 2-goal advantage.
Yeah.
That number surprised me. I think it's Lautaro. I think the way that he's playing with Thuram has been, night and day from what he's had the past few seasons with, Dzeko's, zombie body. So yeah, he's definitely got to be the easy pick. I know if you guys are saying if you picked him at plus 200, maybe back him with, a long shot, but I don't think you need to do that. Plus 200 it's not nothing, but it's not quite enough where you can start to hedge, in my opinion.
Yeah, not yet.
So I think if you got him at plus 200, like, take that slip, lock it up, and come back to it in April, because I think you're gonna have a winner there.
Cool.
Yeah, it'll be hard for anybody to catch him at the way he's scoring goals, the clip he's going at.
For sure.
All right, anything else you guys want to throw in before we wrap this one up? All right, so next week, club football comes back. We will have all of our regular coverage. Not sure what the big matches are post-international break. Oh, Milan Juve jumps right out the calendar, so we'll definitely be covering that one in Serie A. Any big Premier League matches as
Chelsea,
well.
Arsenal is
Chelsea,
in
Arsenal. There you go.
Liverpool, Everton. Even though it's not a big match, it's still
big
a
enough.
derby.
So there'll be plenty for us to talk about. Plenty of winners to give out. We're going to try to back up that 7-2-1 week with another plus money week.
Back-to-back 7-win weeks, sir.
Yeah, Serie A props. Nick, what did we do last week with Serie A props on Patreon?
Oh man, we crushed. Hold on, I just shut the document.
I think it was
Give me
5-2.
Yes, it was
a big number.
We lost Milan over and both teams to score because Lazio's goal was offside. Or no, it's a couple weeks back. I'm sorry.
No, it was Milan team total and Milan Genoa over.
That was
those
it.
two.
I knew it was Milan that screwed us. Actually, 2 weeks in a row that they smacked us around. Last week, you nailed it, brother. 6-2.
6-2.
Yes, sir.
We were up quite a few units because I know Orsolini cashed it over plus 400. So
plus 450.
Keep an eye on Patreon. Scotty's got the Premier League props. Nick and I get the Serie A props up there, exclusive for our patrons. Plenty of other content. Champions League stuff will be coming back around very soon. We thank you for listening. If you haven't caught us yet on YouTube, if you're listening on your favorite pod platform, we are also on YouTube. And, check out Patreon. Everything is Kicks Picks Pod. We're also doing some work on happyhoursports.net now, some extra written content, so you can check that out there as well. So thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next week.